We welcome you back to Longhorn Weekly, presented by Pluckers here on the Longhorn Network and the Longhorn Radio Network from Learfield IMG College. When we have special guests, I always have Shaka introduce the special guest, but it's always special when it's one of your players, and especially a guy that's been around for a while like this guy has been.
Yeah, Jace Febres, great to have him on today. One of my favorite guys on the team. Coaches aren't supposed to have favorites, but just as a person, and as a player, but his willingness to grow and in all ways and to explore how he can improve. Went through a challenging stretch when he hurt his knee last year, had knee surgery, which was, really, really tough, particularly during COVID times, that recovery. But great to have him on and excited about how he's playing.
Jace, have you known all along that you're one of Coach's favorites, and do your teammates know that?
I think I've gotten a little hint of that since he's been recruiting me. I mean, he personally recruited me. He took over that process from the beginning, so I kind of knew we had a special connection from the jump. I'm sure the team kind of knows me and our connection just because I go to him on a personal level. But yeah, I take advantage of wherever I can. He's a knowledgeable guy.
Well, and you guys have had a developed relationship over the past several years. So, I mean, that's a big part of it. And I want to give both of you a chance to talk about this word that both of you use, and it's mindfulness. And I want to give you a chance to discuss that a little bit and what it means. Shaka, let me start with you, and then I'll get Jace's thoughts on it as well in the discussions with regard to Jace's growth over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so impressed with Jace and his willingness to explore. We actually prefer to use the word consciousness. We have a little club, Jace, Kamakahepa, and myself, and these guys teach me so much, and I'm just so impressed where they are as college kids compared to where I was in this area. So when we talk about this work, it's all about just raising your awareness of what's going on around you and also inside of you in terms of your body and your mind and thoughts. And then kind of the next step, once you've raised the awareness, is to get to a place of acceptance, which is obviously easy when things are going really, really well, not so easy when things are challenging. So it's been fun. Really on a daily basis, communicating with Jace, going back to, over a year now about this stuff.
Jace, was it more challenging or more difficult for you to learn that early on, or did the challenge continue to make it difficult for you when you had to go through what you did last year, the injury, the microfracture surgery, all of those things in terms of the consciousness that Coach was just speaking of?
Yeah, I think when the injury happened, that kind of made it. My bad, I'm outside, but when I first started this process, it kind of opened my eyes. I was not wanting to suffer anymore. I was in my head way too much. So the beginning was kind of like a trick in a way. It kind of came a little bit easier than I thought. I was really open to it, starting to really practice a lot. And then as my rehab started getting more intense, as challenges started coming along, the season started happening, I wasn't able to get on the court. It became a lot more challenging. And then you had to really kind of hone in on your practices. And Coach sends a lot of different readings every single day, just kind of reiterating the practices. And that helps a lot. But it got challenging, along the journey more than in the beginning.
Shaka, how differently, I don't know if different is the right word, but how much alteration do you and the coaching staff have to put into play in discussing this philosophy that we're talking about when a guy is coming off injury or dealing with surgery, as opposed to someone who's just trying to improve his level of play and hasn't gotten there yet? I mean, are we talking about completely different things and how the approach works with guys, especially younger guys as opposed to older guys in the program?
Well, on one hand, no, it's not different because, we always talk about regardless of circumstances. The stuff that we're working on is applicable if you're old, if you're young, if you're doing great, if you came off an injury. if you had a tragedy that you just dealt with during COVID, during non-COVID. But on the other hand, just realistically, human beings, there is times where there's more pain and suffering than others. I mean, Jace went through, that was a traumatic injury, and that was a very, very serious surgery. Then he comes out of surgery, everyone's sent home because of COVID. And so now for Jason, for all of his teammates, they didn't have the same resources that they normally have at UT in terms of, treatment and all the different things that we do to help guys. But I'm proud of Jace because it's been, a winding path for him in terms of these events and circumstances in his life, but he's never wavered from his willingness to look inward and to grow. And even when he's gone through struggling, times where he's struggled, he's continued to work on this. And that's why I think it's really going to benefit him down the road.
Jace, did it ever get to a point for you because of what Coach just spoke of, not only the surgery and the rehab that you were going through, but the fact that when COVID came and there's the shutdown and everybody's away from campus, where you kind of wondered, is it worth it even to go forward? Why not just, plow forward and finish up and finish my degree? And that's what I'm here for anyway. I mean, did any of that enter into your mind, the doubts about whether you wanted to continue to even play basketball?
Yeah, I mean, when there was a point where, I couldn't even walk, and, you get into really dark places, and, those thoughts do come inside your head. And that's where the whole consciousness and awareness part of it kind of comes in. And it's, in this present moment right now, what can I do? I'm not going to quit right now because I'm not even giving myself a chance, So that was always my whole thing was, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit. And that's why, I kind of bringing up how the beginning was kind of like an enlightened period with that consciousness and that mindfulness whole aspect. It gave me the hope that if I keep trying, I'm going to have to break through at some point, and I've never been somebody who's going to give up, so that's not in my nature. That's not what we, teach here at Texas anyway, or what Coach emphasizes at all. So, I had to keep pushing because there's no other option.
One thing, Craig, that would probably be interesting to hear from Jace is, Jace, talk about, we all have negative thoughts at times. What do you do with those?
Well, there's a lot of times where, those negative thoughts, depending on, the situation and the current moment you're in, they can affect you different ways. But, you have to sit there with them. You have to sit with it, and you have to really be present and kind of look at it from an objective standpoint, not a subjective standpoint or point of view. Because if you look at it objectively, you figure out what you need to do to fix it, and what you need to do to get past it. If you look at it subjectively and you put yourself into it, now those feelings, your ego, a whole lot of different things can come in and make you feel a certain type of way about it. When, if you look at it objectively, like I said, it's a lot more cut A to B. And that sounds a little harsh sometimes, depending on that's where the self-compassion part comes in and things like that. But it's honestly the best way to get through things and the best way to work through any, hard or negative thoughts.
Is it difficult? Is it difficult to work through that and to objectively be able to deal with that as opposed to subjectively? How challenging is it to deal with that?
I mean, you're fighting human nature, because we've grown up to, try to empathize with ourselves, my bad. And, try to, it's okay if you don't do this, or it's okay if this doesn't happen, when sometimes we need to actually look at things cutthroat how it is. And that's the difficult part with it, because you're fighting human nature. And Coach says that a lot, but a lot of times with this whole growth spiritual journey, you're fighting human nature. You're fighting it. So it's tough.
Chuck, I've heard you say that a lot about the fighting of human nature. It probably does your heart well as that of your coaching staff when you hear your players accepting of what those realities are, as well as the philosophy of what you're helping them trying to achieve and accomplish and understand, and you can see them do the physiological and emotional and mental buy-in to all of that.
Well, I'm just listening to Jason, just so impressed with him. And, you know, he's affected other guys on our team in this way. There's a great saying, Craig, that kind of goes along the lines of some of the study that Jason and I do, which is the mind is a terrific servant, but a terrible master. And so, you know, when we talk about human nature, it is human nature sometimes to turn pain, which we all have pain in our lives, you know, for different reasons, into suffering, which is all that dwelling on the pain and the negativity we create and the negative thoughts. The pain is inevitable, but the suffering is actually optional. If we're able to make sense, like Jay said, I love the word he used, objectively, of what's going on. But it requires true presence. You know, it requires us to get out of the past, get out of the future. We're here right now, the three of us on a Zoom having a conversation. And that takes work. And particularly when you're a college student athlete, I'm just so impressed with Jason Kamaka, and we've got some other guys, Royce, that have put some time into this. And I think they're starting to see some benefits.
All right. We're going to continue our conversation with Jace Febres coming up. Talk some basketball related things as well, how he's back on the floor and contributing in a big way when Longhorn Weekly with head coach Shaka Smart, presented by Pluckers, continues in a moment. I want to remind you that when you are at home or at the game, make sure that you have your notifications turned on in your Texas Longhorns app so you can receive your 5 free wings coupon from Pluckers with the Horns when at home. We welcome you back to Longhorn Weekly, presented by Pluckers. Our special guest during this portion of the program is Longhorn senior guard Jace Febres. We just saw and heard the call of the three there. You had 3 big threes in the game. I remember asking you after the game, Jason, we've talked about this over the years, about the comfort level of settling into your shot or within the flow, and also if you feel that responsibility as a senior, understanding when the moment calls for that, because Iowa State made some pushes and there were 3 specific locations or periods where they were going to make a push and you would answer with a big 3. Does that, the presence of mind, how does that settle into you at the moment about trying to make sure that you can answer with a big shot like that?
I mean, honestly, when we try to lose ourselves in the game whenever we play. So, you know, kind of not trying to, you know, overemphasize any moment, because that kind of puts a little pressure on you and just playing your game. So when we also emphasize, you know, answering back. So if they come and try to score, we're going to try to score, you know, match them right back. So that's all that's really going through our head. So whenever I get the ball, I just try to step in with confidence.
Going back to coming off the surgery and the rehab, how long did it take you after all that to feel comfort? Like you said, there was a time period when you couldn't even walk. So how long did it take you to feel comfortable shooting again?
I'd say around like November. Then the end of November is when I started practicing a little bit more live, and I was able to get my feet under me and my jumper starting to feel a little bit better. That whole process is kind of weird because I just really off balance, you know, with the different amount of muscle that's in both of my legs. So trying to get that back, I got that back around November, and now I feel a lot better. So my jumper's feeling a lot more smooth.
I know this probably goes back to something we were talking about in the last segment about understanding the objectivity of it, being objective about things. But when you're coming off the surgery and the rehab, and I know in your mind was, I want to be back for the start of the next season. Well, the start arrives and you're not quite ready there yet. Was that something else you had to process through, saying it'll get there when I get there? And how challenging was that to go through that as the new season was starting and you weren't quite at 100% yet?
As anxious as I was, naturally, I'm a pretty accepting guy. Like, if my body's hurting, I'm not going to really try to go do anything that's going to make myself get hurt anymore. So I knew in the moment, like, where I was, and I accepted where I was. And that's what kind of helped me just continue my journey and not put too much stress on myself, because I knew I couldn't go out there and play just because my body, like, physically wouldn't let me. So.
You said something I want to get your thoughts on that you talked about in the post game the other night, and the more I thought about it, the more I found it interesting. And when I asked you about finishing on the road, and
Yeah.
you guys had played in Lubbock and had dropped that game, and that was the first of the 3 in the final 6 days. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'll let you expand on it. But you said something along the lines of, we're all curious when we go into a different arena these days to see how many people are going to be there in the environment. All I wanted to give you a chance to expand on it, because you guys clearly, I guess, have noticed that with reduced crowds and socially distanced crowds and things like that. What's your take, and what's the collective team take when you've walked into these buildings here, especially of these last 4 games, and seeing what it was like and how it affected you or didn't affect you, and how you processed it as you went about your business in a basketball game?
Yeah, I mean, and like Dougie said, during these days, the days where we have to social distance and it's not quote unquote normal. Going in and seeing if a arena is going to have a lot of people there or not is kind of an exciting thing for us. And we don't even look at it now as like being away or being, at a rival place. We try to steal their energy just because, it's so scarce in these times. So when we go into a crowd or an arena and we see a whole lot of people, we're like, okay, yeah, that gets our energy up. And we know, like, because energy doesn't necessarily have a label or a name. You can pull it from anywhere. So if we can feed off of that, that's what we try to do.
You're on pace to graduate in May with your degree in corporate communications. Does getting the work done become a little more challenging when you're on the road for 3 games in 6 days and you had an extra 48 hours, so to speak? How did that affect it? And for folks that don't understand, how does it affect the rest of the guys with the work you've got to get done when you're out on the road for an extended amount of time?
Yeah, I mean, with COVID, along with the season, especially right now because it's postseason, and then in school also, it just feels kind of like just an extra burden at times. So we have to really hone in and lock in. That's why we communicate with our academic advisor, Kat, before we hit the roads to make sure that we have all of our things ready, all of our tests and things like that scheduled out. We also have, luckily right now also, our professors are a lot more lenient as far as current situations and if we're going through adverse times. So if we're on the road and whatnot, and we have to we miss class or we have an assignment that we have to turn in a little bit later because we're on the road, a lot of our teachers now are a lot more understanding.
Can you see the finish line for you with this with graduation and getting your degree?
Man, I mean, I'm having a little bit of I was talking to one of our coaches yesterday. I have a little bit of senioritis with everything going on, but yeah, I can see the finish line. I'm going to push through, and I may be trying to pursue even more education after this. So we'll see.
What do you think it's going to mean, not only to you but to your family, when you attain that degree and when you earn your degree and walk away from the University of Texas, at the very least, with your undergraduate degree, and like you said, maybe some more education down the road for you? But what will it mean to you and to your family to achieve that milestone?
I mean, it's going to mean a lot, especially being able to achieve that I keep saying during these times, but it's a really difficult time for a lot of us. They always tell me, every day, like how proud of me they are, and they send me a lot of support every single day, a lot of love, and that's who I do it for. I do it for my family back home, so I know it's going to mean the world to them whenever I graduate.
Well, just like Coach, you're one of our favorites. I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in Kansas City at the Big 12 tournament.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
All right, that's Jace Febres. Coach Smart will rejoin us when Longhorn Weekly with head coach Shaka Smart, presented by Pluckers, continues on the Longhorn Network and the Longhorn Radio Network from Learfield IMG College.